Hello and welcome to It's About Youth. I'm your host, Fana Shea. Now, from false rumors to manipulated images, gender disinformation has become a powerful weapon to undermine women in politics. Today, we'll unpack its impact and the fight back with two of our honoured guests, Amira Aisya Abd Aziz, Puteri Wangsa and Acting President of MUDA, as well as Abdullah and Nishad Mohamed from KRYSS Network. Thank you so much for joining us, you two.
Thank you for having us.
Right, okay, let's unpack what gender disinformation really is, because I'm sure a lot of viewers here don't really understand the term and would like to know more about it. So how would you define gender disinformation, and how is it different from general online misinformation or even harassment? Yeah. Amira, maybe we can start with you.
Well, first and foremost, it's important to understand that both misinformation and disinformation basically false. They are false information and being spread to and then they cause people confusion because of it's being fake, for example. But the difference is that when it comes to misinformation, most of the time when people share misinformation, it's not particularly intentional. There's no malicious intent behind it. For example, I can share something from 1990 because I genuinely thought that it is something new, and I shared it to my followers, for example, and people thought that it is true, but it is misinformation. But I do not have any malicious intent behind it. But this information is, news or rumor that is specifically put out there with a malicious intent behind it to spread fake rumors about a certain person or certain organization. And when you put gendered disinformation together with it, it becomes more nuanced towards a specific gender. And in Malaysia, most of the time, of course, that is towards women, to undermine women, to even entrench stereotype towards women. And as you've mentioned, gender misinformation became particularly more abhorrent towards women politicians, and these have been a very strong political weapon to undermine women politicians, whether it is, most of the time it is most rampant during elections, obviously, as a weapon to take down a certain candidate, especially a woman candidate, but it also can happen day to day, and this has caused a lot of people being unable to trust a woman politician, and also to cause women politicians to feel not safe, to feel unsafe in politics, and subsequently a lot of women are afraid to join politics because of gender disinformation and also specifically gender-based harassment online.
Right. Yeah. I'm pretty sure most of these comments are very unsolicited, and also, from online keyboard warriors that are behind the scene and talking about, politicians or whoever of a particular gender and spreading this sort of lies and false rumors, right? Abdullah, KRYSS Network spearheading a campaign against gender disinformation. Based on your research and experience, how widespread is this phenomenon in Malaysia, and what are its common forms, and how, or do you think they actually discourage women in politics?
From our research, we can see that it is quite widespread. Like Amira mentioned, it's the use of narratives that we find are sexist and misogynistic against women, and it can happen online and offline. So in online spaces, we can see like commenting on appearances, on their ability to lead, right, for women's ability to lead. But offline, we also see this in ceramah or in their lectures or in their talks online. It can also be in their political discussions. It can also be talks with their supporters, right? So this can further entrench the stereotypes against women. In 2022, KRYSS Network, we interviewed about 17 women politicians, and it was at the peak of general elections, and we could see that that was where there was a spike in gender disinformation. So we saw that there were a lot more attacks on women politicians, and their abilities, their personal lives were also at stake. A lot of the comments that we saw were on whether they could lead because they're not married. If they were married, then they attacked their partner's race or the partner's appearance, for example. And then they also look at there was hypersexualization that we could see as well. So they could be dressed in any dress as well, but people just sexualize them and say negative things about them. So the focus was then on their appearance or their personal lives rather than their platform, their agenda, or the ability to lead, right? Ultimately, when this happens, women politicians, political candidates, or people who are considering joining the political field, they feel that they second guess themselves. They feel that if they were to join this, then the platforms that are there, digital platforms or non-digital platforms, are not for them. They are not supportive enough. And in political parties as well, it becomes an institutional thing where they think, oh, it's a risk factor if we put women political candidates forward. Yeah. So that's how it impacts the
I mean, it's really sad to hear, because, you know, these people are genuinely trying to go forward and trying to make changes for Malaysia or for the world, and they're being put down just because of how they look or how they present themselves. And it kind of dampened the whole, you know, like, democratic system, right? The whole political process in Malaysia. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Amira, but if you don't mind sharing, have you ever experienced this this gendered disinformation, and how have it affected you directly or indirectly?
Unfortunately, I have, and unfortunately, I'm not, you know, a unique case. Most, if not all, of women politicians have experienced gendered disinformation personally, whether at the start of their career or at the mid of the career, or even now, if they are at a higher position. The more attacks that they are getting. I remember the first time when I was sort of like gang attacked. There was like a coordinated attack against me. And I think it's important to understand that most of the time when this kind of attacks happen, it is not in silo. It usually happens like in a coordinated way, and even if like one person started attacking, then it will be amplified and amplified. And I remember the first time I got it was when I was just starting out in politics. It was when I was 25 years old, and it was really you know, that was the first time I had a full-on panic attack. When, you know, when you hear people, when you look at your Twitter, at that point of time, it's still Twitter, and people talk about how you look like, people talk about your size, people talk about what you are wearing, people talk about, and, you know, this kind of Malaysian nowadays like to use, and this is not back then, but now people like to use makcik kepam and those kind of words. And that's not something that is unique to me. And I think what I'm particularly upset about was that there was this one time that you know, there was a video of me on a street protest, and I was wearing a t-shirt, a black t-shirt, and there was like a lot of attacks on how I looked like at that particular point of time. There was a comment like, "Oh, you're so fat, like a refrigerator," and there was a comment like, "You know, your fat is getting to your head," and those kind of comments. And there was this one particular comment that was made by a person who is not a fake account, and so that person is using his own account, and he stated something about, "Oh, her chest looks like she has given birth to 10 kids," and all those kind of like comments targeted to my chest. And so I lodged a police report against that comment. And I remember at that time, there was a senior female politician that contacted me and told me, "Oh, Amira, you should not have lodged a police report. You know, as a politician, you should show that you are strong. Lodging a police report shows weakness. And, you know, you should show that you are not affected by any of this." And I realized why we can never move on from this kind of attacks is because back then, I don't blame that female politician. I think a lot of senior female politicians have been made to believe that in order for you to survive politics, you've got to show that, you know, you've got to like steel yourself and show that you are unfeeling, that you don't care about all these kinds of attacks. But what happens is that not everyone can do that. And when you're in the position of power and you don't use that power to sort of ensure that the space is becoming safer and safer for the people that is coming after you, then there is no use of being in position of power. That's what I felt like. And so I told her that I'm not lodging this police report specifically for me, because I know nothing's going to happen out of this. And exactly, nothing happened out of it. The guy wasn't reprimanded, there was no action taken against him, but at least I made a statement out there to other young women that this is something that I am facing, that many other women in politics are facing, but we are fighting back against it. And I think that is one of the most important things for women in my position that have this kind of, I'm privileged enough to have you know, the support and the coverage that I need to show to other young women that we are trying to make this space safer for you. And I think it's also important to note that this is not just unique to Malaysia as well. There was a report by IPU, Interparliamentary Union, that more than 60% of female politicians across Asia Pacific have experienced gendered disinformation, online harassment to their personal look, body shaming, or you know, sexual harassment to their person. And this is something that if you do not fight for it, if you do not fight against it, then it's just going to be exacerbated because of the nature of social media itself.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to put it simply, if you sweep it under the rug, you kind of made it okay, right?
Yeah.
When we voice out or we say that this is not okay and then we should fight against it, it signals that this kind of behavior isn't normal and it shouldn't be tolerated. I think that's the know, part of the essence of why we should talk about it and voice out concerns about it, right? So I guess drawing on that, Abdullah, in your view, do you think the public is aware, you know, based on what Amira has said as well, how orchestrated this campaign of gendered disinformation often are, and or do they seem, you know, just part of politics? You know, it's pretty normal during election time for people to say this, you know, as part of their campaign. What do you think?
Yeah, I think in Malaysia we are aware, and many of the public are aware that gendered disinformation happens. There might not be a term put to it, right? But we do see it happening often during general elections, state elections, by-elections.
Sometimes in parliament as well.
And in parliament as well. Yeah, so people see it as part and parcel of politics. That's where the problem lies as well. So people know that there are cyber troopers or bot accounts that are aligned to a certain political party or a certain candidate, but they might not know that it is targeted, that it is funded, right? And sometimes there are even call-outs specifying what type of arguments or narratives to use against women candidate and different political party, for example, who are fielding women in political platforms. So it's something that people are aware of. It's just that the extent of it is not well known yet.
Right.
I feel, yeah.
There's no particular statistics or studies or deep dives into it yet. So people just label it as, oh, this person is making, you know, misogynistic comments or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. We want to talk more about how we can tackle this head on with Amira and Abdullah, but we'll go for a quick break first. Hello and welcome back to It's About Youth. I'm Fana Shea and today I'm joined by Amira as well as Abdullah to talk about gendered disinformation. Now we've talked about what it is, what are some of the common forms, and also personal experience based on, you know, what's happening in the politics in Malaysia. Amira, what's your take on this? You know, personally, who is, not to say responsible, but what are the main players or systems that are enabling this kind of behavior?
Especially during election, you can see that there's a hike towards gendered disinformation. I think that's a big signal that there's a certain coordination behind gendered disinformation. And I remember there's this one election where a political figure, a male political figure, he specifically mentioned that, oh, you know, don't vote for women, you know, because women are very weak. They can't execute their work. And, you know, if there's flood in your area at 2, 3 a.m., they have to put on makeup first. They have to, you know, put on good clothes first before they go out.
As if that's all we care about.
As if, yes, exactly. And you know, and unfortunately, number one, there's not enough noise among other male politicians to fight back against what that male politician is saying. A lot of women politicians are calling him out. In fact, even those from his own political party called him out and said that, oh, this is not true. Like, we don't, you know, even if it's 2, 3 a.m., if we are caught, we are out there, hit the ground running, and this has been seen so many times that women politicians are just as effective or sometimes even more so than male politicians, right? But the issue is when other male politicians are not speaking out against it as well, and so it is seen as if, oh, of course, women, of course, you will want to defend yourself, and it's not seen as an it's not seen like we have allies. Although we do have male allies, but their voices are not as amplified as so much. And you can see that when it comes to coordinated gendered disinformation attacks, there's some political nuances behind it. So I feel that political parties is as much responsible when it comes to gendered disinformation as other regular public. Because when you started, and you can see, for example, the kind of posters that you produce, the kind of messaging that was produced behind it, this is not something that a regular man by the street can produce it. Right. But this is something that you have a team to produce such thing. For example, I remembered, I think it was during GE15 when there was like this whole posters about women in politics who are widows. And they were like, oh, this woman has married twice. This woman has been widowed twice. This person has, and this kind of issues are specifically targeted towards women on the other side. And so who's behind it. And then at the same time, as I've mentioned, it wasn't being properly, counted by each party, because unfortunately, I feel that every party has a hand in it, whether it is coordinated by the political party itself or by certain individuals within the party. The messages were put out there to be circulated by their party bots. And then, of course, people love sensational things. People love things that are seen as causing chaos online. And so they amplify these noises.
I mean, let's not talk about women representation in politics, increasing representation, if we can't even handle, the women that are already in politics and protect them from, this kind of comments and this kind of very derogatory, very sort of look-specific comments that are very damaging, right? Okay, so we've talked about the problems at hand, and we talked a little bit about what should be done and the players involved. So let's talk about solutions here. What are some of the immediate measures that political parties, governments, or even media, anyone involved can take with regards to protecting women in politics and making sure that we tackle gender disinformation head-on? Anyone can start first.
I think number one, on political parties, I have the privilege of being the leader of my own political party, and as a woman, I made it, I made it compulsory for all my party members to, who wants to run in an election, to go through a gender sensitivity training prior to election, and so they understand. When it comes to election, there are certain things that when you say this is considered as harassment, because unfortunately, not everyone knows what constitutes harassment. And so they thought that this is ala gurau-gurau, but then it's actually harassment. And so we want our members, especially those who wanted to contest in election, to understand this. Secondly, as I've mentioned, it's really important for political parties to take strong action against their own members, and especially their political party leaders who have caused, sexual harassment and also gendered disinformation. And we have practiced this before. We've taken, we've suspended membership simply because they made a slight sexual harassment comment towards another person. And I think ensuring that that is in place will make your other political members feel that, oh, this is really serious. It's not, it's not benda my mind. And so they'll feel more guarded with what they're saying. They feel more responsible and accountable to the things that they put out there online. And so I think training and also accountability action are two things that political parties have to put in place. And this is something that we do not have yet in Muda, but we are moving towards it. And I had this conversation with, I was suggested to do this with one of the NGOs that I met, which I forgot which NGO, but one of the NGOs I met suggested that we have to put this specifically in our party constitution, that gender disinformation and sexual harassment are not accepted. And so that is something that you entrenched within your constitution,
formalize
and formalize it within your constitution. It's not something that is just a general rule. And I think that is something brilliant, and we're going to put it as one of our amendment to our constitution in the future. In terms of media, I went to this one training because we were talking about gender disinformation and how media played a role to sort of exacerbate the comments made towards women. Instead of using or quoting these derogatory terms, because I know that it is more, more sensational and people might want, it's more clickbaity and people want to say it. But instead of saying, for example, when I was attacked and being called all this, for example, when I was called fat, instead of quoting Amira dipanggil gemuk, you should have quoted what I say in response, for example.
Right, okay. So turn the conversation, turn the narrative around.
I think turn the narrative to a more positive thing, because when you take the negative part, people will only remember that instead of what are we doing to fight against it. I think these are just two things that I think it's simple, but sometimes the simplest things are the hardest to execute.
In terms of global best practices, in terms of policies as well, there's not been a silver bullet or best practice or policy solution yet. Oftentimes they point the finger into different actors. They talk about political parties, they talk about government's laws against gender disinformation. But what I'd like to focus on as well is tech platforms, right? So the sensationalization of social media as well is because of the business model that kind of puts it up there, so more people engage with this type of content. And it's something that we do need to moderate as well. So one of the earlier solutions that we can try is content moderation. And we do have a government body in Malaysia, Content Forum, which has a content code. And that content code kind of stipulates, right, what are the things that you can say and can't say, and it's like
it's being
a guideline.
It's
pretty much being sidelined, unfortunately.
Being someone in media, so
of course, and it's something that needs to be entrenched a little bit more, like to consider before you actually post things out. On social media especially, it's kind of hard to moderate because there's so much content going on a daily basis and even hourly, right? There are different accounts posting the same type of content, so you can't really filter through all of them. So it's something that we do need to include in some of our codes and our laws as well, and consider it as bad as online gender-based violence and even sexual harassment, because most of these narratives are borderline going into the territory of like being harmful to women, especially women politicians. Another thing is, of course, something that Amira already mentioned. Political parties do need to start having these difficult conversations with their grassroots members, with their party leadership, and with supporters online, right? That it is not acceptable for us to use these kinds of narratives against women, even though they are not from the same political party. And sometimes it happens from within their own political parties, right? It's dibesarkan lah. People keep talking about it.
It's normalized.
And once someone talks about it, it becomes the talk of the town, so to speak.
I mean, I think if you want to put it simply, it's everyone's job, right? Political party, government, those in tech, those in media. I think if you want to really sort of, not to say dumb it down, but lay it out there. Imagine this happening to your sister or to your mom or to someone you love, people giving all these hateful comments about how they look or how they appear. I think once we have sort of that change of mindset, we are able to sort of, not be involved in doing this kind of things to other people, I feel. Unfortunately, we only have time for one or two more questions. So let's start with Abdullah in short. When it comes to civil society, coming from KRYSS Network, how can civil society support female leaders beyond just calling out abuse? For example, in narrative building or even, positive visibility.
Right. I think in terms of narrative building specifically, right, we do need to do a little bit more. Even in terms of global rankings, for example, Malaysia ranks #1 in terms of gender equality for education. but we rank one of the lowest, 134th, when it comes to political empowerment, and we are the lowest ranked in ASEAN. So it doesn't look good on us as a nation, and it doesn't look good on us as the chair of ASEAN this year, right? So focusing on that lens specifically, we should at least be trying to have these conversations about introducing laws, talking about the actual issue of gender disinformation, and tackling it before it becomes a bigger issue, like we mentioned earlier, right? Globally, it's on the rise as well, including the use of deepfakes, the use of AI against women political candidates and women politicians. What else could we do? We should be starting to work together with political parties, with male allies specifically as well, because we should be looking for these male allies in parliament, state legislative assemblies, in political parties and in civil society, because otherwise we'll just be talking in an echo chamber, and we'll just be talking amongst ourselves without action being taken. So we do need that support for us to push it forward.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you phrase it in a nation-building context, right? These things, you know, equal representation, woman representation, you know, making sure that we protect our women in politics. These are all part and parcel of how we create a great nation. If these are being sidelined in politics sooner or later, or in parliament sooner or later, it will come out and it will not be great. Especially like you say, we're chairing ASEAN this year, and the statistics doesn't look too good.
It doesn't.
Right. Okay. Amira, let's wrap up with you. What advice would you give young women who would like to enter politics and who fear this kind of thing, and how would you advise them to tackle this head on?
First and foremost, this is a very personal advice, because to me, you know, you can say a lot of things, but at the end of the day, when you wanted to enter a space that is very, very noisy and messy, it is important to recognize your support system first and foremost. If your family is supportive, then they are your support system. And if you enter a specific political party, find your friends within that political party, because it is so easy to make enemies in politics. But if you found some good friends and they help you through it, because even for me, every time I was attacked, the ones who helped me get through it are people in my support system, my family, my husband, my team. And I think it's so important to have this in order for you to push through. And secondly, and this is an advice from also a young politician, is to always remember and start your journey in politics with what you are passionate about. And remember why you are here in the first place. Is it worth fighting for? Is it worth staying in this noisy, messy place? Is it worth getting all these attacks? Is it worth, you know, pushing through all these challenges? Because to me, why I'm in politics is because I want to make a difference in a lot of things. And to me, that it is worth staying here. And if you think that what you want to fight for is something worth fighting for, then trust me, you have more than you have a lot of people who actually are trying their best to make politics a safer space for you, for women, myself, and a lot of trailblazers before me have pushed. You know, we might not be able to break the ceiling tomorrow, but we are consistently shattering it so that maybe one day someone will come along and, you know, it's shattered enough for you to just break the ceiling through. Yeah.
And we thank both of you for pushing through and for putting this issue in the spotlight, because not many people talk about it. It's being normalized, we know, and it's good that we can have, you know, this conversation and put it to light that this is a serious matter and it needs to be tackled for many reasons. And we hope that it just gets better from now on, and politics becomes a safer space for women and future girls if they want to join in the future. Right, that's all the time we have, unfortunately. Thank you so much, Amira and Abdullah, for being here with us.
Thank you.
I'm Farhana Sheh. Thank you for watching.